are here with Judy Slegh, the author of I Have a Prodigal. And wait, there's more. It says, How to Gain Hope and Healing When Your Loved One Has Gone Astray. I know way too many people with a prodigal child. And I have to admit, I'm guilty of that. I have a prodigal daughter. I love her. I love her unconditionally, but we don't agree on things. I believe in God. Her God is a psychic. I believe God creates miracles. She believes her psychic is her reason for her troubles and her happiness. Yeah. Can I help her? It's a fight. Yes. All I can do is pray. The psychic has worked on her for 7 years, got her to move up to Chicago. It's a big business. Yes. And she is brain damaged, easily influenced, easily manipulated. We're all constantly challenged. But that's when we need most to have faith, to call on God, to find hope through God. Tell me, what are the components that are in this book? How would somebody gain strength when the most painful thing that someone can experience is not having a good relationship with their child? Because every parent wants their child to be happy. Most of all, every parent wants to be loved by their child. I know this one.
Yeah.
And way too often, we feel like our children hate us. And we blame ourselves. Where did we go wrong? Can you help us?
Certainly. And I've lived the experience of having a prodigal. I have done healing prayer for 9 years. And in that process, I've ministered to those that have been prodigal. And I've ministered to those that are hurting due to prodigals. And there's plenty of stories about the transformation of emotions that happen when we give them to God. It says we're commanded to forgive. And yet sometimes forgiveness is really hard, especially when they continue to push us away and reject our values. This book goes through almost like a healing prayer journal where you interact with God and identify the emotions that your prodigal situation has brought up into you. It might be regret. It might be shame. It might be strife, as you constantly have that budding of the minds. It might be betrayal. It might be hopelessness. It might be fear, like what's going to happen next. And as I've went through all of those emotions myself regarding my son, I realized I have to let go of those in order to see my son from God's perspective. This book, each chapter leads people through prayers and identification of what needs to be released, what we need to repent of, because sometimes we carry emotions and put up walls to protect ourselves. As we take down those walls and open our heart to God, He comes and gives us revelation of what we should declare, what we should pray, how to actually partner with in hopefulness with Him, rather than the hopelessness that the enemy wants to plant in our minds.
And you touch upon some such very important topics because you, in your book, you identify components of emotional wounds, how to release pain, how to set boundaries.
Yes.
My daughter hates me every time I don't give her what she wants.
Yeah.
And I can't buy her love.
No.
It's not right.
No.
I have to set boundaries.
Yes.
Learn to hear God's voice. How often does God talk to us? I mean, you tell me.
All the time. It's just He speaks in different ways to people. Sometimes we say, oh, it's got to be an audible voice. But sometimes He will give us a memory that we're supposed to hang on to, like that is the jewel in my loved one. Sometimes it's just this inner prompting of like, I just need to pray in the moment because I feel that there's something that they're making a decision on. Sometimes it's colors, like, oh my goodness, I'm seeing darkness. And so what is the darkness that I'm supposed to pray against? We are actually in a spiritual battle for our loved one. And how do we partner with God to do that?
I was really suffering over the relationship with my daughter, and it was starting to bring me down until I heard that song, Let Her Go. It's going to hurt for a little while, but let her go. And it's almost as through that song, God told me, let go and let God.
Yeah.
Be kind no matter what. Don't agree with her craziness, but be kind no matter what. Mm-hmm. And let God. But maybe there's more that I can do in this book. I know there's more.
Yeah.
And I want to be able to do more. And I'm sure there's other mothers that want to do more.
Right.
Maybe not my mother. Oh. Not that one.
Yeah.
But there is other mothers. And even my daughter has a friend. She calls me. And she's having troubles with her mother. And I'm thinking, why can't it be my own daughter? Mm-hmm. Asking me for advice, calling me, yet I can be there for her friend that's having the same problem with her mother. Mm-hmm. And so, why is it so important to heal the emotional bond between interpersonal relationships, especially mothers and daughters?
Yeah, that's a really important question. And in Malachi 4:6, it says, in the last times, end times, fathers' hearts will be turned to their children, and children's hearts will be turned to their fathers. And as I was examining that, it's just, if we can heal our heart regarding that relationship, they're actually drawn back to our heart. I have a really quick story. Somebody picked up this book and in 5 weeks went through this emotional healing process.
Okay.
And they had no relationship with their son or their grandchildren for 2 years. After finishing this book, out of the blue, she was able to have lunch with her grandkids.
You give me hope.
Because there was something that happened in the spirit realm where there was a calling of the heartstrings, calling that relationship back. And there wasn't that offense and wall that had been up before that.
And you also describe how to develop God-directed declarations for specific situations through prayer.
Yeah, there's a whole section on declarations, and declarations is just speaking into being what God has desired. You know, we are kingdom people and are supposed to be carrying kingdom mindsets and kingdom agreements. In my situation, God had me relook at the jewel that my son was. And as I looked at that, the simple declaration I had was that he would operate in Jesus' heart, because since he was a young boy, he was able to minister out of Jesus' love. And that was stolen to him from him when he became a prodigal. So I started declaring, my son is going to operate out of the heart of Jesus. There was no time constraints. There was no expectations. But within another 5 to 6 weeks, that transformation occurred. There was crisis, there was terror, and the story is in the book, but at the same time, I was confident that God was working everything good for good.
I need this book.
Yeah.
This is a book I need.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, and it's all God's work. There's times where I'm praying, God, in my time, was God, do dreams and visions to bring them into correction.
Whatever it takes.
Whatever
Only
it
God
takes.
knows what it takes.
Right. Put people
Only
into
God
their
knows.
lives to intersect them, because it's not our
The
responsibility
only
to
thing
say
I can
them.
think of, I pray, please let her fall in love with a Christian.
Exactly. Well, now
That's
we can
all I
say,
ask
give
for.
dreams and visions in the night season. You know, so.
Oh, goodness.
Wow.
I mean, but prayer is the strength that's needed, because it's very exhausting.
Right.
It's very exhausting at times. And how to gain hope and healing when loved one goes astray, that's something that we all deal with today. And it's very hard on the parents, and especially on the child, because I know that especially a child my daughter's age, that age, they still need their parents a lot.
Yes.
As you get older, but that age, they really need their parents. So how can we best be there for them? And that's what this entails.
Exactly. And I just want to say to your audience, you are not alone. They say 2/3 of a church audience has prodigals, but we don't talk about it.
Nobody wants to admit it.
No, and we wrongly take the shame of having a prodigal, when the truth is they've walked away with their own choices and have said yes to the enemy.
Because there's this old school thought that the child is a reflection of the parents.
Exactly.
And if the child is prodigal, then it must have been something the parents did wrong.
Exactly.
And they don't realize that now in today's age, we're coming into generations that are straying more and more from God and religion. And I mean, I would have never imagined a million worlds my daughter would depend on a psychic for her happiness.
Right.
I didn't think it could happen to me, but it's happening a lot. Mm-hmm. It's a growing trend.
Right.
And people don't realize how scary life is without God. For example, I don't know if this psychic can help her with her depression from her PTSD. A psychic can only do so much, but God can do everything.
Exactly.
Nothing's impossible.
Exactly.
So, whose side do you want to be in?
Exactly.
And I have hope.
Yes.
I'm going to get this book.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You were going to say something?
Yeah, there is so much times we take credit for the good, but we take credit for the bad. And this book deals with pulling up regrets and letting go. And God was a perfect parent. He was flawless, and yet Adam and Eve chose to sin. There's only a couple times where he said, I regret. And yet we dwell on it. And so this book is really powerful to see things from a different perspective.
Nice.
God's perspective, and speak those declarations over our loved ones so they... Exactly.
And I have hope.
Yes.
I'm going to get this book.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You were going to say something?
Yeah, there is so much times we take credit for the good, but we take credit for the bad. And this book deals with pulling up regrets and letting go. And God was a perfect parent. He was flawless, and yet Adam and Eve chose to sin. There's only a couple times where he said, I regret. And yet we dwell on it. And so this book is really powerful to see things from a different perspective.
Nice.
God's perspective, and speak those declarations over our loved ones so they are drawn back, not only to us, but to Him.